Happy Friday. I hope it's not too cold where you are. It's freezing here in Boston. It feels like 12 degrees. So
I'm sorry to share, but we're 73 in Boca Raton, in Florida. You mentioned the weather, Rosa. I wasn't going to say anything. But
I'm dying right now. So thank you for sharing that, Eduardo. You made my Friday so much better.
I lived in Boston for a long, long time, so I miss it. I actually miss it. So feel good about that.
All right, Rosa. It's 12. It's 11:05.
Let's get started. We're gonna get started, everyone. And just so you know, this call is being recorded just for the benefit of anybody that is missing today. So welcome. I'm really glad that you're here. And I know that your time is precious and the work that you're doing is under so much pressure now more than ever. And if you can mute your phones, that will be great. We'll have plenty of opportunities to come back on in live. Today, we're going to be talking about leading through the DEI fatigue, the backlash, and the uncertainty, but not in theory, but in the very real context that you're navigating it every day right now. We have about 60 minutes together and around 15 of you in the room. So there's room for interaction while still keeping things manageable. So before we dive in, I want to quickly name a few ground rules for how we'll be together today. So first, assume positive intent. Honor real impact. We're all coming from different roles and realities. We'll give one another grace and we'll take seriously the impact of our words and decisions. Second, one mic, many perspectives. So let's avoid talking over each other. We use the chat to raise our hand. You can use the chat to raise your hand, to put your questions, comments, and I'll do my best to bring as many of you, as many voices as possible to the screen. Third, confidentiality, please. Feel free to share experiences in a way that feels safe for you. We ask that stories stay here and that if you share them later, they are shared without names or identities. And fourth, step up and step back. If you notice that you've been speaking a lot, practice stepping back. If you haven't spoken at all and feel like you're able, I invite you to step up and share. You can use the chat like I mentioned throughout to share your reactions, your questions, or this is my life moments, right? We're building on that as we go. And you're welcome to have your camera on and off as your context allows. Do what you need to do to stay present and take care of yourself. Now, I am Rosa J. Núñez. I'm the founder and CEO of Inclusion Forward Group. And I'll be co-facilitating this session with my dear colleague and friend, Tommy Shi. And I'm going to be introducing ourselves in a second. And our goal for today is very simple. It's to help you walk away with clarity, language that you can actually use with your leaders, and a few tactical moves you can take this week when you get back to the office. With that container in place, let me quickly ground you in who we are and why we're doing this work here with you. Oh, someone is joining.
Yep, I've got it.
All right, you got it? All right. So a quick snapshot of who we are. So as I mentioned, my name is Rosa. I'm the founder and CEO of Inclusion Forward Group. I've worked in DEI for my entire career. I will say more than 15 years, and I'm aging myself. I have led DEI in corporate environments, also in law firms, organizations such as media, PR, public relations, and marketing, and have advised organizations across sectors on inclusive strategy and leadership. My work sits at the interaction of inclusion, risk management, and leadership, helping organizations stay aligned to their values and legally grounded. I live this work not just as a practitioner, but as someone who's navigated backlash, red tape, disappointments, you name it, firsthand inside organizations. I'm joined here by my colleague, Tommy. Tommy, would you like to come in and introduce yourself?
Great. Thanks, Rosa, and welcome, everybody. So I'm Tommy Shi, founding partner and chief business officer for IFG. My experience spans law firms, global corporations, and advisory work, including experience as a litigation associate, in-house counsel, and later diversity inclusion officer for Mercedes-Benz, as well as president of a national AAPI civil rights organization. At IFG, my focus is on strategy, client engagement and development, and translating complexity into clear, actionable paths forward. So as we go forward, let's figure out how we can support leaders like you at this moment. Rosa?
Absolutely. So how does Inclusion Forward Group support you? And this is just a quick snapshot. It's not a snapshot of our services and what we provide, not a sales pitch, but to give you a background of why we're doing this work and why we can do this work here with you. So an Inclusion Forward Group, we don't just do one-off trainings and just disappear, right? We partner with leaders to navigate issues like this, like D&I backlash, risk, and culture change through targeted, results-driven advisory and implementation support. At a high level, our work falls into three main buckets. We do individual and team support. We do organizational strategy and design. And we also work on ongoing partnerships. On the individual side, we work with leaders who are being asked to make high-stake decisions about D&I under a lot of scrutiny. Coaching helps them build the confidence, the clarity, and the language they need to lead in this climate. On the organizational side, we help you assess your programs and practices, align them with business needs and legal guidance, and then redesign what needs to change. This is where our impact framework really comes into life, which stands for inventory, map, protect, adjust, coach, and track. And I'll tell you more about it later. And then there's the ongoing advisor piece. Many clients bring us in when something shifts, a lawsuit, a political change, a backlash moment, and they need a trusted thought partner to make sense of their decisions, help them craft messaging, and keep an eye on risks and cultures at the same time. Across all of that, a few things are non-negotiable for Inclusion Forward Group, or in short, IFG. Our work is human-centered. This is about real people and communities, not just policies. It's customizable and strategic, no copy and paste slide decks. It has to fit your sector, your profile, your reality, and your culture. And it's bold and honest. We're not here to sugarcoat the landscape, but we are here to help you navigate it without abandoning inclusion. Now, today's session is a small window into how we think and work with clients, naming the realities clearly and then moving quickly to strategy and next steps. To ground all of this in your reality today, I want to start by getting a sense of who's in the room and what's your current reality, what you're currently carrying. Now, I know we're here, and if you're here, you're probably feeling the weight of the challenges to D&I right now. And you are absolutely, I want to make sure that you understand this, absolutely not alone. We have a mix of people here: culture, talent, D&I, HR leaders, legal, risk and compliance, public sector, higher ed, nonprofit, foundations, you name it, and especially corporate folks. And the pressure looks different depending on where you're sitting, but the emotional toll often feels very similar and familiar. As I name these sectors on the slide, just mentally locate yourself and your context. Is this, this is where I sit. These are the pressures that I am under. That will matter as we go and we become more tactical in this presentation. To ground us even more, I'll do a quick self-assessment just for you. Now, I want you to we're going to take the next 40 seconds to locate yourself, 60 seconds to locate yourself in this moment. And the scale of 1 to 5, you don't have to put it in the chat. You don't have to write it anywhere. I want you to think about how much pressure you're feeling to scale back your D&I work currently. How much support do you have from your leadership? How clear are you in your next steps? Again, you don't have to put this in the chat. This is just for you. And if it helps, just dial the numbers down somewhere. I would like for you to notice any mismatches. For example, feeling high pressure, low support, and low clarity. I mean, that is a very real and very common combination nowadays. And we're here to help we're here to help you, referring back to where you are in those scales as we walk through our strategy today. So let me pause for a second and let you think about that. Remember, what kind of pressure are you feeling? How much support do you currently have? And how clear are you on your next move?
Yeah, if I could jump in, I mean, clearly Rosa and I, we know and understand and have felt that pressure, most recently at our last law firm. And, we saw what was happening externally, and we're going to talk about that, how, for what we do, sometimes it's really hard to block out that noise, right? External events and occurrences really affect the work that we do. And I'm sure that's the same for all of you. And so this is a chance to reflect and step back and figure out what the effects have been on you. And then later on, we're also going to talk about, you personally as an individual, how those effects. So if anyone wants to, not mandatory, pop in the chat what you're feeling, any thoughts, any comments, and we can talk about that in real time or save it. We want this to be engaging, so please, at any time, pop something in the chat. And if you have a really burning point to make, raise your hand. We'd love to hear that. So
yeah. So Tommy, can you let someone in?
Yep.
While I'll kind of walk people through this slide. So in one sentence, if you can tell me, what's your number one pressure that you're feeling right now? It might be an external mandate, leadership hesitation, right? Staff anxiety, budget cuts, political scrutiny, whatever feels loudest for you. What is keeping you up at night about D&I? And remember that this is a brave space. You don't need to name the organization. You don't need to name anyone. Just share only what feels safe for you, but know that your honesty can help other people feel less alone. So if you can, please share some, what's in your mind, what's one of the big pressures that are holding you back. How people are feeling.
Yeah. So once again, maybe it's a little early in the morning, so hey, that's fine. Just as we get more comfortable, pop something in there and keep that in mind.
But if you're here, I will tell you there's something in your mind that is keeping you up at night. You might not be ready to share it right now, but maybe throughout the
let me just jump in and say nothing is keeping me up at night. Things don't keep me up at night. I keep other people up at night. I'm here because I think this is a terrific program. What I find to be overworn is this sense of, a couple of years ago, DEI has always existed because we are a diverse community and people are always there. There are times where it receives more publicity. There are times it receives less publicity. There are times that people are more welcome, and there are times that people are less welcoming to it. But I don't think it's anything that, again, what I find sometimes troublesome is that we all say now that, oh my goodness, this is it. And, oh, there's no more DEI. I think that we may face some challenging headwinds, but we've always faced challenging headwinds.
Right.
And there are ways that we can move forward. So, that's my piece. And so, but does it keep me up at night? No, nothing keeps me up at night. Good jobs will take care of that. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much for jumping in. And anyone at any moment, if you feel like you need to add to the conversation, feel free to jump in. And I love your perspective. Like, everyone's saying that D&I is dead. This is why we're here, because it's not. We just want to make sure that we give you the tools that you need to make sure that others in your organization understand the same thing. So with that in mind, let's zoom out and look at the bigger landscape that's creating this pressure, right? All this misinformation. So Tommy, can you please walk us through that?
Yes, and first, thanks, Stephen, for your insights. And yeah, I wouldn't figure you out for someone losing sleep anyway, right? But anyway, and then Kira, thanks so much for your comment about client fears about engaging in D&I work with their precarious budgets. We mentioned that, and the political pressures and fear, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. And also, yeah, D&I equals humanity. Absolutely true. So thanks, Rosa. So let's quickly talk about what's happening, what the climate is, right? And so the pressure, and we talk about pressure, right? The pressure many of you are feeling, we felt it, isn't just internal. It reflects what's happening, as we said, outside. And it looks different across different sectors, but there are some general commonalities, right? And absolutely, Stephen, D&I hasn't disappeared. It's evolved. And it will continue to be involved because we believe, Rose and I, and I'm sure most of you, that D&I isn't the right thing to do. It's not, something. It's business driven, right? And that's why it's going to remain and grow. So today's leaders, like you all, are operating amongst legal shifts, political scrutiny, reputational risk that leads to, quite frankly, fatigue, right? So the response, especially the corporate sector, has not been uniform. In fact, it's been split, and we'll go into that in detail in just a moment. But we want to point out the key distinction are not values, it's strategy. Some organizations are minimizing exposure, others are adapting language and structure while preserving core objectives. The public sector, however, looks really different. As we all know, currently at the federal level, this has gone beyond reframing, right? And we're going to get to the state level in the next slide. But just to refresh everyone's memory, in January of 2025, the president signed an executive order titled, and this is where, it's an interesting title, Ending Radical and Wasteful Government D&I Programs and Preferencing. So that is the title of the executive order, one of the first that President Trump signed. And that executive order mandated immediately that all federal departments terminate D&I programs, offices, and related activities, right? So this has included dissolving D&I councils, terminating or placing D&I staff on leave, scrubbing D&I content from agency websites, and canceling training. So we've seen that, right? And that's pretty drastic. In education, and obviously because of the SFFA decision, Supreme Court decision, we'll talk briefly about that in a minute, and other recent court decisions, educational institutions had to reassess admissions-related processes, but they still have the broad mission of making sure that they get the best students possible. And then in the nonprofit sector, which is interesting because I think a lot of people don't think about how D&I is relevant to the nonprofit sector. Equity often sits at the core of the mission, even as currently funder and community pressures and scrutiny increase, right? So that's another sector that's been involved. So we want to go into a little more detail about what your roles are, depending on where you sit. But also, as Rosa said, the key point here, and also as Stephen said, you know what, we don't have to just shrink and just sit in the hole. There are a lot of things that we can continue to do to accomplish our mission and purpose. So let's talk about the legal and compliance realities. First, let me make this really bold statement. D&I is not illegal. What's illegal, and what always has been, is discrimination. The law allows, in many ways, expects that employers remove barriers, expand fair opportunity, and foster inclusive cultures, right? Where organizations now can get into trouble is when a D&I program or initiative or activity crosses the line, right, from some perspectives into giving or denying jobs, pay, or opportunities because explicitly of someone's race, gender, or other protected trait, right? So the work now is to how do we revise, design D&I activities in ways that are both impactful and legally sound. Oh, and this reminds me, as a lawyer, the usual disclaimer: we're not giving legal advice here. Please check with your counsel. So let's turn to some of the biggest legal shifts that are impacting our work here. Obviously, in June of 2023, the Supreme Court held in SFFA, which stands for Students for Fair Admissions. They sued Harvard and the University of North Carolina on the grounds that race-conscious admissions programs were a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and the Equal Protection Clause, right? And the court agreed, and it held that to use race explicitly as a factor in admissions decisions does violate Title VI and the Equal Protection Clause. Now, the court did not ban consideration of lived experiences. Applicants may still discuss how race affected their lives, as long as race is not used as the sole decision-making variable. The decision also is only applied to educational sectors, right? And a lot of people just automatically assume, well, this just makes, DEI illegal across all spectrums. We'll talk about that. But let's keep in mind that SFFA is very narrow. It only affects educational institutions. So the key takeaway is that SFFA did not change Title VII, right, which is the workplace, but obviously it has caused heightened scrutiny in those sectors, in the corporate sector, in other sectors, on how decisions are made and whether or not they are focused specifically on race, right? So the challenge is, how does everyone make D&I activities and programs to be race neutral, well documented, and aligned with business objectives, which is what we're going to get to in a little bit. So second, I also mentioned we're seeing some challenges and barriers at the state level. There are some states that are friendly to D&I, and obviously some states are not. We'll get into that later. At the federal level, obviously, because of the executive order, some immediate effects. So at the state level, states like Florida, Texas, and Alabama and Ohio have enacted laws that restrict D&I offices. They've cut mandatory training and other practices, right? And third, this is interesting, there's also been a rise, and we are seeing a rise, in reverse discrimination claims, right? Which is kind of ironic that some folks are using the Civil Rights Act to actually challenge, right? And these lawsuits target programs that explicitly or exclusively benefit certain demographic groups, right? So these challenges highlight the importance of making sure that programs and activities are race neutral and well documented. So let me finish. The bottom line is that D&I is lawful when implemented in ways that align with Title VII, Title VI, equal protection. And this is the takeaway, and do not make decisions solely because of protected characteristics, right? So, and we're going to get into how we can navigate that. So let's go with the next one, which is, with that context, let's talk about what not to do, right, in this moment, because we're seeing some common missteps, right? So, for example, let's name some companies, right? We've seen that, some companies have folded back or dropped D&I goals, right? Rosa, can we go back to the prior slide, please? Yeah, there you go. Thanks. So companies like Target, Walmart, Tractor Supply, Ford, John Deere, they have scaled back visibility, ending explicit goals, statements, benchmarks, and they've reframed D&I into a broader culture or talent function, if at all, right? At the same time, there's some other companies that have doubled down, right? Companies like Costco, Apple, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Chase, and Goldman Sachs that have reaffirmed their commitments, right, by continuing supplier diversity, pay equity, and leadership development. So clearly a split in how some corporations have reacted to the current climate, right? So what we want to point out is that, when you are walking into a meeting with your CEO, general counsel, or board, or HR, leaders, they're not reacting, well, they are reacting to all this, right? But they're reacting to this in a pretty broader narrative, right? So, for example, they may ask you, If we roll back, will we end up on a list, right? If we hold the line, are we going to end up on a list, right? Either way. So these are the questions that we can help you answer. Your job, right, we think, is to help leadership inventory where you are, right? The legal, political, and reputational signals that affect your organizations, and map the risks and strategies to get out of that, right? So with the external context in mind, let's turn back inside your organization, talk about what you should be actually doing now. There you go. Thanks, Rosa.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. So what not to do right now, right? In moments of pressure, organizations tend to swing towards extremes, like Tommy was mentioning. There are 4 patterns that we're seeing a lot of right now. First, they're going completely silent, scrubbing all DNI language overnight from the website. Now I don't care about DNI anymore. That sends a loud message to your workforce, right? We've walked away, or we were never committed or truly committed. And trust takes years to build and just very much little time to lose, seconds for someone to lose trust in your organization. Second, rebranding without rethinking, calling everything belonging, culture, you name it, anything for DE&I without actually changing anything internally in your organization. Your employees see through it, and your critics aren't fooled, right? They know the keywords and what people are doing, and your legal risk may not change at all. Now, third, waiting for the perfect clarity, freezing everything until the landscape settles. I won't do anything right now, right? Meanwhile, your talent and your credibility are eroding. Fourth, overcorrecting on compliance, killing well-designed, legally sound programs out of fear. That's where you give up ground, and you don't need to lose. You don't need to lose that ground. And this, the threat here is decisions made out of fear, not strategy, always backfire on both the people and the business. And then leadership goes quiet, right? In this climate, when they go quiet, the risk isn't just D&I, it's to people, to reputation, and to compliance. Now, what is the price? The price of going silent. When leadership goes quiet on D&I, it doesn't create neutrality. It actually creates more risk. One, when the people and culture side, we've seen increased attrition among underrepresented groups and sharp drops in engagement and trust when organizations roll back on D&I or completely go silent. Reputationally, silence is rarely interpreted as being thoughtful. It's read as backtracking, especially if you previously made a lot of commitments on D&I, hashtag this, hashtag that, right? All of the posts on social media. Competitors can see it and can use it to attract your talent and your customers. From a legal standpoint, deprioritizing things like data tracking and manager training can actually increase your exposure to discrimination claims and EEOC complaints, which are still very valid. And then there is the panic risk. Dismantling programs hastily without legal review can create brand new compliance problems. So guys, pulling back without a plan, it's not safe. It's not a safe option right now. It is just a different kind of risk. So the question becomes, if the old playbook doesn't work, what does?
Hey,
So
Rosa,
yeah.
let me jump in. So yeah, I mean, this is great. And one of the things that Rosa and I really, I think, want to emphasize is that, I mean, in some ways, there's always a silver lining to everything, right? But I think that, for us, seeing the reactions of certain organizations, corporations, and whatnot, I think for us, this separates, kind of those organizations and entities that have always believed in and were doing the thing for the right reasons, right? That we're following D&I for the right reasons in terms of innovation, in terms of growth, as opposed to doing something because it seemed to be the right thing. They didn't want to get a risk, right? So now I think the silver lining is that this whole shakeup has really identified those organizations that really understand the purpose and the reasons to continue to strive towards equity and inclusion, right? So I think those organizations that have always gotten it, right, and hopefully a lot of you are in those organizations, this is, you know what, they're just navigating, you know, external headwinds now, right? But that's where some folks need some help. So yeah, let's go on.
Right. So, you know, we've named a lot of pressures and risks, you know, that we are all facing in this moment, right? We talked about the legal shifts, the headlines, the backlash, and the very real human impact when leadership goes quiet. So the neutral question is, okay, so what do we actually do with all of this, right? How do you move from feeling stuck or reactive to making grounded and strategic choices? Right? Normalize that there's no magic answer and we don't know it all, right? This is just what works for us and what has worked for our clients. There is not a single one-size-fits-all playbook that I can hand you, because your context matters, your sector, your state, the country that you're in, your leadership team, your current programs, and your organization's appetite for risk. But what's right for a Fortune, what's right for a Fortune 50 company in a red state might look very different from what's right for a private foundation or a university in a blue city, even though the principles are the same. Now, this is where our impact framework comes in. The key is to stop making decisions in panic mode, one headline at a time, and instead move into a structured process. That's why we built the IFG Impact Framework, to give leaders a way to inventory and name their realities, map the risks and opportunities, decide what to protect and what to adjust, coach leaders through the hard calls, and track what's actually happening so that you can course correct if needed. Now, name 3 of the big questions right on the slide. So let's talk about, at the high level, what do you do? Where do you stand right now? Yourself, right? You think about yourself. Given the reality, what should we report, adjust, protect, redesign? How do I, in my role, move from firefighting to strategy? Right? The rest of our time together is about helping you start to answer those questions in your organization, not in the abstract. So rather than jumping straight to tactics, we're going to start with the first question. Where do you stand? Do you know where you stand right now in your organization with regards to your programs? Because once you are clear on what your leadership support is, your risk appetite, and how defensible your current portfolio is, the moves you need to make become a lot clearer and a lot less overwhelming. So let's start here, knowing where you stand inside your organization. Your direction is shaped by 4 key factors in your organization. First, the leadership commitment. Are your leaders asking, how do we do this right? Or should we stop? Do they have the budget? Do you have the budget? You have the authority and you have the air cover, or are you in a constantly defensive state, right? You're constantly defending your existence. Second, organizational risk appetite. Is your organization willing to be able to tolerate some heat? Or is the priority to stay out of the spotlight at all costs? Third, your strategic positioning. Are you seen as a strategic advisor to the business, or as the person constantly defending the programs and complaining? How strong are your alliances with legal, with HR, with finance, and communications? And fourth, your program's defensibility. Are your programs documented, grounded in business needs, and designed in a race-neutral, job-related way that you could defend if challenged? These 4 factors determine whether you're positioned to lead transformation, protect, and stabilize, or some mix of both. When you put those factors together, most people land in 1 or 2 broad realities. And I'm going to tell you what those are in a second. In this moment, most practitioners find themselves in one of those 2 realities right here. In the first, you have leadership support, right? Leaders are asking, how do we do this? And you have the budget, the authority, all of that. And the second reality, you're operating without leadership support, or maybe some leadership support. Leadership wants to stay low, their budgets get cut, your programs get reviewed, and you often are asked to defend or dismantle what you've built. Neither reality is permanent. I just want you to know that, this situation and this environment that we're in right now, it should pass, right? But neither says, and anything, it doesn't say anything about your worth and competence. It's just the terrain that you're navigating in right now. The key line for us is the law demands abandoning discrimination, not inclusion. Our jobs as practitioners is to design culture and practices that protect both the people and the business in either scenario. So let's be practical now. Given your reality, what should you actually be doing in this moment? So Tommy, can you help us walk us through that?
Sure, no, thanks. And, I think that, this is, we're throwing a lot out, and I think this is a good moment, maybe just to step back and, as our intent is to make this international. So, can anyone tell us, what we've just gone through? Does anything really resonate? Does anything jump out at you? Is there anything that we haven't sort of covered that is affecting you right now? Please raise your hand, because I think that, it's really, as Rosa and I were preparing, it's tough to fit all this in 6. We could spend 3 hours on this, and we'd love to, but I think, for maximum value for us here today, I think we want to make sure that, we are covering the things that are relevant to you all. And as Rosa said, it's a nice mix of folks from different sectors. So, I think it's your feedback is going to be really, really critical. And if there's anything that, either we've said or we haven't said that you want to bring up, please do so, right? So, your strategy, what to do now, right? And strategy is a really, I think, amorphous concept, and it ties to, and then Rosa and I have talked about this, I think, culture, excuse me, culture in some ways is more important than strategy, right? I mean, I think that, strategy is good, but really we're talking about the culture of your organization, what the values are, and then those values in turn determine what culture and ultimately the tactics that you use to accomplish the goals of your strategy. So number one, is leadership support, right? So we have two things here. Either you have leadership support, right, on your D&I goals, or you don't. And it's also in between, right? There's a spectrum. And one of the things is, if you have leadership support, obviously that's great. There are things that you can, and hopefully are doing. Lead with data and a clear business case, not just the values language. Design initiatives that are open to all, but that advance inclusion and core business goals, right? And also equip your leaders to lead inclusively. And that's a major part. I mean, that's why we named our entity, we want to focus on inclusion, right? Inclusive leadership is how you get there. And also document everything. In today's climate, it's important to document what you're doing and why you're doing. Now, let's flip to the other side, which is when you don't have leadership support, right? And that's where, it requires different mindset, different tactics. So number one, protect the programs and initiatives that are, legally compliant, right? Hopefully you have that opinion as to what you can continue to do. Invest in your community and your community of practice. Secure small wins. Celebrate the small things, one thing at a time. And be honest with yourself, and this is what we're going to get into later on, which is, don't forget to focus on yourself, your goals and your well-being in terms of the work that you're doing and the challenges that you're facing. So once your reality is clear, you can make smarter decisions, right? And here we go. You can either protect, adjust, or redesign.
Correct, Tommy. So think of your portfolio of D&I efforts in 3 buckets: protect, proceed with caution, and redesign or pause. Protect the low risk, high impact things. So broad inclusive recruitment and pipeline building, structure, competency-based hiring, promoting processes, demographic data tracking to identify barriers, transparent criteria and inclusive leadership training, voluntary ERGs that are open to allies and focus on development. And then think about this as, proceeding with caution, or, depending on the risk appetite that your organization has. Diversity goals, not quotas, right? And targeted development programs. Your goals are not quotas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Supplier diversity and identity-based scholarships or fellowships, again, depending on your risk appetite. Also, affinity-based mentoring, making sure access is fair and voluntary, like women's mentoring programs, people of color mentoring program, like anything that you do that you are proceeding with caution, you need to be able to defend if targeted. And then redesign or pause higher risk efforts. So for example, anything where demographic status is the primary selection criteria, different standards by demographic groups, and programs perceived as divisive or exclusionary by design. So for example, ERGs that are closed to some groups and open only to others. The best practice now is to open your ERGs or employee resource groups to everybody. Now, the question is less that is this legal and more, can we defend if challenged, like I said. So to support you in this process, this is the structure that we created here at Inclusion Forward Group that helps our clients move from not knowing and being overwhelmed to having impact in inclusion and belonging. So quickly, it quickly stands for inventory, that you spell the impact. Inventory, we inventory your landscape, we get a clear sense on your legal, political, and culture and business realities. We map your risk and opportunities across all programs, policies, and practices. We protect and help you protect the low risk, high impact initiatives and determine what should remain in place. We adjust or redesign, help you redesign the efforts and messaging that are high risk or misleading. C, we coach leaders on decisions, language, and accountability in moments of pressure. And T, we track impact, complaints, and any key signals so that you can course correct over time. Whether you have a strong leadership support or you're operating in resistance, this framework, and you can take a snapshot of that if you want, gives you a way to clarify your context and your real risks, prioritize what to protect, adjust, or redesign, and move from a reactive firefighting to intentional defensively strategy. Now, we're not going to go deep into each step today, but you'll see the logic of the impact, IFG impact structure baked into the tactical moves and the language that we're using about our work and how we are walking you through it today. So next, let's talk about one of the hardest part of this work, making the case to skeptical leaders. And I'm going to go a little bit fast because we only have a few minutes left. So pardon me for that. A lot of you, I bet, have very strong, a lot of you are doing really strong work, very thoughtful work, but you're bumping up against leaders who are skeptical, scared, or just exhausted by the word DEI. Now, in this slide, we have language that actually lands with those leaders, especially in a high-risk, high-scrutiny climate. Start by setting the definition, right? To reduce the fear and confusion. The first thing that we need to do is, before I try to make the case, I almost always reset the definition of D&I in plain language, because people are often reacting to very different ideas when they hear D&I. So understanding that D&I, what D&I means for your organization, it's key. When we say diversity, we're simply talking about who's in the room, right? When we say equity, it's about who we design fair systems for. Equity is all about fair systems. And inclusion is how people are treated and able to contribute. Now, this D&I, it's not about quotas or lowering standards. It's about clear, consistent standards and fair access, which actually reduces legal and performance risk. Now, we're shifting from values only to risk, performance, and people. With skeptical leaders, I don't start with slogans or posters. I start with the levers they are comfortable with and accountable for. Now, we frame D&I at Inclusion Forward Group as a risk management tool, reducing discrimination risk, complaints, and inconsistent practices, a performance strategy, better hiring, better decision-making, better innovation, and a people strategy, attracting and retaining the talent they say they want. Instead of, we should do this because it's the right thing to do, you might say, D&I reduces our exposure to bias claims and hiring and promotion. It is how we improve the quality and consistency of our talent decisions, and it is how we retain the people we've invested so much to recruit. And I hope that is resonating with you. Now, let's go to the next slide, Tommy, where we're talking about maintaining trust and this very interesting times when some organizations are needing to roll back.
Yes, thanks, Rosa. So, and yeah, thanks. We're mindful of time. We've got 10 minutes left, so we may because we want to get to, I think, the heart of, what we want to accomplish today, which is to get some discussion going, but also give you all 3 concrete things that you can do. But let's talk about, we can talk about, I'll talk briefly about the trust, Rosa, or you want me to go straight to the poll?
No, go ahead and talk just a little bit about the trust, and then
right. So basically, a lot of this I think we've covered already. But what do you do if you're in an organization that's rolling back, right? And unfortunately, some of you may be there. So these are the quick things. Communicate openly and empathetically. Explain the why, right? Explain the why. These things foster understanding and psychological safety. Strategically adapt and innovate. Focus on what's possible, right? Look at the glass as half full rather than half empty. Build robust support networks. Make sure that there are safe spaces for your customers, for your clients, for your employees to discuss and go over what is affecting them, and also ensure diligence and accountability. As we said many times, document decisions and outcomes, right? Be purely data driven. So these are the quick things that you can do when there is a rollback. So now let's go into a quick poll. And here's where, if you like, please just pop in the chat or just, come online. We really want to know, after what we've discussed for the past, 50 minutes or so, where are you? Do you have leadership support? Are your folks engaged? Or are you in a situation where there's been a pullback or leadership has gone quiet? Or in the middle, hybrid? Do you have unclear or mixed signals? Just so we can get a sense of what all you all are dealing with. So if you can, just pop. So, okay, from Jay Lee, unclear and mixed signals. Okay, not surprising. That's sometimes a hard place to be, right? Because you're not sure where you are. Thank you for that. Anybody else as to where they are? I know some of you are D&I practitioners, some of you are in law firms. Okay, Rachel, continued support, made adjustments, but overall.
And just so you all know, we are mindful of your time, but we're staying here as long as needed. Like if you want to hang out and stay over and ask us questions, we are here for you. This is your time. Now, as you can continue putting things on the chat as we go, but I wanted to mention something really important here, because we've talked a lot about protecting your programs and your organizations, but I want to name something clear to you. You also have to protect yourself, right? Many D&I leaders are burned out, under-supported, and carrying other people's emotional labor on top of their own. So I want you to take 30 seconds to make this real for yourself. If you can, write down or think about one boundary that you'll set this week, something that you will stop doing or take off your plate, right? Maybe stop defending a program that is not defendable. One action that you'll take for your professional development or network, something that serves you long-term in your career, inside or outside your current organization. And one person that will be honest, that you'll be honest with about how you are truly feeling right now. This is not selfish, it is sustainable leadership. And you cannot pour from an empty cup, my friends. Staying in a role without support forever, it's not noble, it's actually unsustainable. So to bring it all back together, and we're going to bring all this together, I want to leave you with 3 concrete moves that you can take this week. And Tommy, feel free to jump in to help us understand what those are.
Yes, in fact, I'll do right now. So thanks. We've got some more chat points, and thanks Solana and Ingrid. But I want to add personally, I think it's really sometimes hard not to take a lot of these external things personally, right? A lot of us are involved in this work because we are personally committed to these goals and outcomes. And sometimes this gets back to the well-being. It's sometimes hard not to take these, changes and challenges and attacks on D&I personally. So very quickly, Solana, yes, mixed, you're at a membership organization, and it's hard to know how to balance, right? That's one of the challenges. And then for Ingrid, I think that this is where, you have to be intentional and deliberate. Even though you may have some, positive meetings where there's thoughtful strategies, sometimes there needs to be the next step, which is the follow-up with, written communications or directive to make sure the organization knows where it stands, but more importantly for you and the other members of the organization know how to proceed. So thank you for this comment. So Rosa, this is kind of what we wanted to give the takeaway. So please.
Yeah, so quickly, we don't know it all, but we've been in this industry long enough to kind of help you and guide you on what your next steps are. And we think that we have few steps here that you can make right now that will start clarifying your role in your life, to be honest with you. So first, you need to audit one high-risk program with the legal aligned criteria. Audit the program, pick one that keeps you up at night, although not everybody is being kept up at night, as we heard, or is getting the most attention, a program that is probably being watched very closely. Look at it with the legal aligned lens and ask yourself, do we have a clear business rationale for this program? Are our selection criteria neutral and job related? And if I had to, could I defend this in court or to a regulator? If the answer is not, or I'm not sure, flag it to the redesign under the impact steps we talked about. If the answer is yes, label it as something to protect and document it now. Rationale, criteria, and outcomes. Number 2, build one strategic alliance, right? You need to build strategic alliance. Reach out to someone in legal, HR, finance, or communications. Ideally, legal or HR, if that's available to you, to ask them, what are you hearing about D&I right now? Can you keep me in the loop about all those things that are happening in the law attacking D&I? What concerns are coming up in your area? And what do you see overlapping between our priorities and the work that we're doing? And you listen more than you talk, because they will give you insights that you probably don't have in your space. And third, document one win, my friends. Document. It can be small. It can be a successful hire, a conflict that you helped resolve, improve engagement on one team, you reduce turnover in a group, you capture everything, the story and the business impact, the time saved, the money saved, the risk reduced, and the complaints that were avoided. You put this you can put it in a wins folder, even if it's literally on a file on your desktop. Those stories become your evidence when budgets get cut or leaders ask, what are we really getting from this? They're actually part of the track piece and the impact structure. Now, we talked a lot, and like I said, my friends, we are happy to stay over and answer any questions, but we want to hear from you. And for those of you that have to leave, we want to keep this. I'm going to go back to this slide for a second, but I want to make sure that now we're here to support you. We are an organization that is new, but I'm happy to always meet with you. We have a 30-minute free assessment that we can do with you and give you a couple of tips on where you are in your journey. And we take those, not too many a month, but we're happy to schedule those for you, and reach out, because we're trying to build that community every month of people that come together and talk about the issues that we're having. So now, any questions that you might have or anything that is on your mind that we didn't cover?
I got a comment rather than a question. Tommy, Rosa, I think this was fantastic. Really appreciate the time that you gave. My comment, two quick comments. One, Tommy, you listed those companies, some that were doing the rollbacks and some that were doubling down, so to speak. What I noticed is that, it was hard to say where, when, and how, because some of them were consumer-facing companies where, you'd think, oh, yeah, but Target is a consumer-facing company, but they're rolling back. But Costco is a consumer-facing company, but they're moving forward. So there seems to, and again, a comment as well as question. It just seems that it doesn't matter whether it's located in a red state or a blue state, they're consumer-facing or not. It's anyone's guess as to where it happens.
I will say,
have you noticed any trends?
Yeah, I will say to that is tied to what we talk about leadership support and also the values of the organization. You can have 5 retailers, but they all have very different leadership that have very different priorities. And those that see diversity, equity, and inclusion as a business driver are the ones that are doubling down. Those that are afraid, those that are probably contractors of the government, right? Because if you're a federal contractor, you can't be doing the same type of programs, or the ones that never, ever, ever were really committed, but because of what happened in 2020 with George Floyd, they needed to build a D&I department of dust, right? They're finding this as an opportunity to scale back because the commitment was never there. So to your question, I think it depends on the level of support that leadership has and the trust that they have on this work. That's where you see the pulling back or the doubling down.
So, but you know what? I think it'd be really interesting to have been in the room, right? Or the boardroom when all those companies, whether they doubled down or they decided to leave, right, made those decisions. So, Stephen, you and I know, Don Liu, right? He's the former GC of Target. And I had a conversation with Don about this. And, Don Liu has always been a champion of diversity wherever he was, right?
Yes,
and it was interesting to see that, Don kind of retired from Target kind of during the whole process when they were like, rolling back. So I don't know if there's any, connection there. But I think that you just don't know. I would have never thought that Target would have rolled back based on, Don being there, what they were doing, but all of a sudden they did, right? And I personally think that that's going to hurt them in the long run. So you just don't know who was in the room and what they were looking at. And this is why we kind of want to get into like, hey, if you're in that situation, here are the things to think about. But thanks, Stephen. Then thanks to everyone. I know it's past, but we're going to stay here. So anybody wants to chat or talk, and please, once again, thank you. Reach out to us. We hope to see you again.
I just thought it was great. I know a lot of people have dropped off. There's only 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to keep you both. It's lunchtime over here. I think this is just fantastic. My other comment that I was just going to say is that I think it's so encouraging that you're both doing this. It makes me not sad, because it's a choice. There's no moralism in it, but what I find is that there just seems to be this sense among others that, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm better than anyone. No, I'm not at all. It's just you just get the sense of this sadness or this despair, or I can't do anything. There's still so much we can do, so much we can do. And so I really do appreciate both of you highlighting that there's still so much that people can do, that, even if you don't have $100 million budget or $10 million budget or $1 million budget, there's still so much that can be done. And so I appreciate both of you training and willing to share others how that can be done. So, just wanted to say thank you.
Really appreciate you championing this work, because it's not easy, and sad, I will say, is an understatement. I think for someone like me that grew up with D&I, I've never done anything but D&I work. We've been through our ups and downs in the journey, but it has been devastating. It's like our identity they're trying to completely destroy the identity of number one, companies that believe in D&I, and number 2, practitioners that live for this work. For many of us, this is not a job. This is our goal. It's like our And when you feel attacked like this, where then you have to be the strong person in the organization, it's more than sad. I will say it's just devastating.
But you're strong,
Yeah.
Rosa. You're strong.
No, we are strong, but I really appreciate your joining and thank you so much. And I'm glad that you found